questions, or has the evidence been put in our plain sight? Like it's right in front of us. That's why we can't see it.
Yes, I think that's more how it is. I think the evidence is actually pretty obvious if you just step back a little bit. But I think we've been very encouraged to sort of like focus on certain avenues and get very, very sort of excited about certain things without seeing the big picture. But if you just stand back and you do what's called a meta-analysis, it's like you analyze the analyses that have ever been done. This is when you realize there is something going on. And I mean, just taking the power of the mind and mass consciousness as a good example. I mean, scientists again and again say there's no evidence, there's no evidence. And yet Dean Radin has done some excellent work in standing back and actually looking at all the analyses that have ever been done and says even if you strip away, you know, the probability of a certain amount of error and a certain amount of falsity, the fact is what you see when you actually look at the stats is overwhelming evidence that the mind affects the world we live in. So, you know, we can do that, I think, with anything. It's like UFOs. You have to stand back and do a meta-analysis and say, okay, you can see there's enough of this going on that it cannot all be fantasy, it cannot all be lies. You know, there is something at the core of this. The trouble is that there's such a few amount of soldiers at the front, if you like, who are actually doing the work. And the reason for that is because everybody else has been frightened off. You know, they are told that if you get into those realms, you will be made fun of, you will be laughed at, because, of course, that is what has happened in the past. But I sense that changing, and I think people more and more, they are okay with somebody having a more extreme belief if they can see why that person has conviction. They don't necessarily have to agree with you, but I think they will be impressed with conviction if it's actually reasoned and not just a fanatical kind of shaking the fist as, you know, you must believe me. If you give reasoned, rational evidence, I've found, certainly in my experience, that people will open up to it. And, you know, again, how you present it's very important. If you present it as big and doomy and frightening, people are put off. And with the Truth Agenda book itself, I've gone out of my way to make it colorful. It's all in color, to make it accessible, not trying to put a big doom hit on them, because that's the opposite of what we're trying to do here. We're trying to hopefully create a world where we can actually rise above all this misinformation and control agenda. And if presented in the right way, I truly believe we will get somewhere. And then that evidence that you're talking about will suddenly just be revealed. It'll be exposed effortlessly for what it is, and people will see that there's something going on. And if it isn't, well, then the truth is revealed. Either way, I think we're coming into a period, and astrologers, interestingly, have also had a lot to say about this. We're coming into a period now where astrologically truth will be revealed. It's been very foggy, and very sort of like hard to get to the truth of. The next few years, covering 2012, I think we're going to see, just even if you put anything else out of the picture, astrologically, we're going to see control versus freedom, truth versus lies.
Andy, we've just run out of time for tonight. I want to thank you so much for joining us. Continued success. And we'll have to have you back on, because I'd love to continue this conversation with you in the near future.
Be a pleasure.
Take care, Andy. Andy Thomas, www.truthagenda.org. That's www.truthagenda.org. I'll be back on the other side of the news at 6.5 minutes past. Don't go away.